We have seen above the Nyaya view represented by Vatsyayana on the knowledge of the things like fire by many Pramanas. Let us now consider the view of the Buddhist epistemologists on this matter. The Buddhist epistemologist Dignaga, who was in 5th century, defined perception as the cognition devoid of conceptual construction, kalpana podham. It is not associated with name, universal concept, and so on. On the other hand, inference is about a universal concept which is not real. Accordingly, there are two types of objects of knowledge, namely unique particular swalakshana and universal samanya lakshana. Out of these two elusive epistemic domains of reality, the first one forms the reality as such, and the second one is the construct of our mind. Thus, the reality is ontologically only one, namely swalakshana. It is epistemically divided into two, swalakshana and samanya lakshana. The unique particulars are pre-linguistic realities which are conceptualized in terms of linguistic realities. Let us contrast this view with the Nyaya view represented by Vatsyayana and others regarding perception, inference, and verbal testimony. We have considered Vatsyayana's view that existence of fire is realized from the instruction of a reliable person through inference as well as direct apprehension. What is the nature of the object common to all three Pramanas there? Naiyayikas would say that it is the particular fire substance qualified by universal fireness. According to them, the particular fire substance, the universal fireness, and the relation of inherence, samavaya, by which the universal resides in the particular, all are real. Naiyayikas in their ontology accept all the 6 or 7 categories, padarthas, of Vaisheshikas. Hence, the particulars, namely substances, qualities, and motions, universals, the relation of samavaya, and absences of them, all are real, according to them. If a particular can be perceived, the universal residing in it and the samavaya which relates them also can be perceived. Rather, all the three are perceived together in qualified form. Such a perception is called savikalpaka pratyaksha, judgmental perception or determinate perception. The same qualified object is the object of inference and also that of a statement made by a reliable person. This ontological and epistemological approach amounts to the doctrine of Pramana Samplava. In contrast with the Nyaya, the Buddhist epistemologists hold that the object of perception is never a qualified object. It is unqualified and also indescribable. However, it is real, and being real, it is causally efficacious. If, on the other hand, one infers fire from smoke, the object of inferential cognition is not a particular fire, but fire in general or universal fire. The universal fire is not real, it is just a mental construct and is not causally efficacious. For example, the universal fire does not burn as the real particular fire does. Dharmakirti, the 7th century Buddhist logician, in his Pramana Vartika, brings out this distinction between two kinds of objects and claims that Pramanas are basically of two kinds because objects are of two kinds. As he says, means of knowledge are of two kinds as their objects are of two kinds. As one of them has causal efficacy, the other lacks it. The object like hair which appears in hallucination is not a real object because we are inclined to regard them as non-object. The objects are also of two kinds because one has commonness, the other has not. One is the object of a verbal expression, the other is not. In one case, the cognition arises depending upon the other conditions, such as thought and recollection of convention. In the other case, it does not. Dharmakirti is here focusing on 4 ways to differentiate between the cognitive contents of perception and inference. The contents of perception are causally efficacious, Shakta, whereas the contents of inference are not causally efficacious, Ashakta. The contents of perception being unique particulars are dissimilar, asadrisha, to the other contents. The contents of inference, on the other hand, are similar, that is, common, universal in nature. The contents of perception are prelinguistic, bare particulars, and therefore they are not communicable, anabhilapya. The contents of inference being universals are expressible by the application of linguistic symbols. That is why they are called communicable, abhilapya. The unique particulars become the objects of cognition directly, that is, independently of other conditions. Universals become the contents of cognition depending upon other conditions, such as thought and recollection of linguistic convention. The 2 pramanas in this way have contents which are absolutely different from each other, but this gives rise to a problem. The 2 pramanas understood in this way will be completely unrelated to each other. But Dharmakirti also says that the right cognition is twofold, dvividham samyak jnanam, and that it leads to the fulfillment of human goals, purushartha siddhi. The question is further complicated because the unique particulars, according to Buddhists, are momentary. So there will always be a difference between the particular object which is perceived or inferred and the one which is obtained after some moments. The Buddhist epistemologists address this problem mainly by applying 2 devices: acceptance of 2 types of objecthood, object of grasping, grahya, and object of determination, adhyavaseya, supplementing the doctrine of momentariness by the notion of a stream or continuum of momentary particulars, Chanasantati. Dharmottara in his commentary on Nyayabindu says that any means of knowledge, Pramana, has a twofold object. One is the object of grasping. It is the content, akara, with which knowledge arises. The other is the object to be attained, which knowledge determines. Accordingly, the content, grahya, of perceptual knowledge, pratyaksha, is unique particular, solakshana, which is momentary. But the behavioral demand is not satisfied with momentary reality. Therefore, the object of ascertainment, adhyavasaya, of perception is the stream of momentary reality, chana santati. It is this continuous stream which is obtained in phenomenal experience and is taken to be causally efficacious. This is not altogether devoid of conceptualization, vikalpa. In this way, perception leads to conceptualization. Here we can say that though the direct object of perception is unique particular, its indirect object is a universal or a conceptual construct. On the other hand, the content of inferential knowledge is universal, samanya lakshana, which is called inefficacious. However, its status of pramana is not compromised because it leads to the ascertainment of the apprehended reality as unique particular, swalakshana, to the benefit of the behavioral transaction. So, we can say that though the direct object of inferential knowledge is universal, its indirect object is a unique particular. We have to be careful not to mix up the 2 types of objects. When we talk about the Pramana Vyavastha approach of the Buddhists, we are talking about the direct objects, that is, contents of Pramanas, not their indirect objects. Similarly, a successful practice according to the Buddhist does not consist necessarily in containing the same object which is cognized, but it could be the attainment of an object which belongs to the same causal continuum. Suppose I see a glass of water from a distance. I approach the water and drink it to quench my thirst. Here, the water I drink is not the same as the one which I saw from distance. Still, my perceptual cognition of water can be called veridical, as it led to pragmatic success. I drank the water particular which belonged to the causal series to which the perceived water particular belonged. Similarly, in the case of inference of fire from smoke, one had seen smoke arising after a fire in the kitchen and formed the knowledge of universal pervasion based on causality. When one perceives a smoke particular on the hill, one recollects the universal pervasion between smoke in general and fire in general, and has the inferential knowledge of fire in general. The inferential knowledge leads one to search for the real fire. So one climbs up the hill and finds fire there. This fire is not the same as the one which produced the smoke and the inquirer saw on the hill, but it belongs to the causal continuum to which the previous fire belonged. Therefore, pragmatic success takes place through a complex relationship. This is the gist of the Nyaya Buddhist controversy on the question of Pramana Samplava and Pramana Vyavastha.